I'd like to call the meeting to order of the Board of Leavenworth County Commissioners. I'd like to invite everyone to stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to begin with a moment of silence, please. A roll call will start with Commissioner Stevens. Here. Commissioner Shimke.
Here.
Commissioner Smith is present. Commissioner Culverson.
Here.
And Commissioner Cause.
Here.
All commissioners are present in some form. We're ready for public comment. And we'll start with Sarah Williams.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Sarah Williams, 12725 166th Street, Linwood, Kansas. I have some photos I'd like you to look at. No words, just photos. So,
Place them on the table.
and you'll look before the vote. As I stand before you today, feeling as lied to as the day I read Cook-Flat-Strobel's traffic study, proclaiming Kaw Valley should be able to safely haul sand along the proposed haul route. Having traveled these same roads for 17 years, I believe these roadways are safe for their current level of use from regular, ordinary traffic. I do not believe in the present condition these roads are suitable for hundreds of 80,000-pound sand trucks each day. The engineer's words are patently false. Last Wednesday evening, at the public hearing for the Lenape Sand Quarry, Kaw Valley's lawyer proclaimed endlessly and with exasperation that the haul route only needs a mill overlay, maybe some sections reconsidered, and it's good to go. He presented to you time and again as if that could somehow make the haul route magically safe for commercial traffic. Without a complete teardown and reconstruction, as Olson engineers and over $25,000 of taxpayer money helped you realize was necessary. Your staff says the haul route reconstruction is non-negotiable. Sheriff Dedeke passionately explained to you, it is the nature of this route that makes it dangerous to public safety, not its surface. Along this journey, I've heard you are visual learners, so maybe it helps to see what I'm telling you in photographs. Today, I present to you this photo essay from Cook-Flat-Strobel engineer himself, proving to you this haul route can never be made safe with only a mill overlay for commercial use. The engineer himself could not get his own personal vehicle off the road in a safe manner enough to clear the lane of traffic. Please, Commissioners, deny this SUP this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, there.
Ready for Mr. Ben Morgan?
Morning.
Morning.
Ben Morgan, 12548 158th Street. During the public hearing last week, there was a lot of focus and debate on the core samples of the road along the proposed haul route. I'd like to re-emphasize that there are so many more facets of this proposal that risk public safety and welfare rather than just the mere layers of this road. I request that you don't focus your decisions today only on the haul route road. There are so many other risks to the entire county and its taxpayers. It would not be fair for a private enterprise to benefit while the residents of this county are taking a loss to their property values and quality of life. Even if the road were steel plated 2 foot thick, it would never address the lane width and lack of shoulders. If the road was widened by the applicant with 14-foot lanes, it would not guarantee that our well water would not be contaminated from the quarry. If the road was reconstructed with 10-foot high-strength concrete, it would not keep our property values from plummeting because of the quarry. If the road was laminated with high-strength titanium, it would not promise that the applicant and independent trucks would stick to the haul route. Even if this road was layered with polished diamonds, it would not force the applicant to be compliant with federal safety regulations or to pay its taxes to local governments. Guys, even if the haul route was 40 foot wide of solid gold, it would not begin to make this proposal compliant with the Golden factors. Please don't focus your decision on just the road. There's a lot going on that I know you'll take serious. Please cut the cord on this proposal and vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Ready for Joel Sipp?
We got to call him.
Okay.
This is Joel.
Hi, Joel. We are ready for your public comment.
Thank you. My name is Joel Sipp. I live at 12421 158th Street, right across the street from the proposed site. I'd like to emphatically request that you vote against this proposal by Call Valley Sand. My family of 5 moved here 4 years ago, seeking the so required country life that Sutherland County provides, and is even marketed as by the county. As we know, the addition of the sand pit would be a huge disruption to that life, the kind of life that I and many others claim they're seeking. If this area ceases to be that escape, then it will push away the many others looking for the same type of life in one of the fastest growing parts of Leavenworth County. I just want to reiterate a few of the points that you may have already heard that I feel are important to remember before you vote. Regarding the traffic and safety issues, Call Valley focused on core samples and thickness of the road because it was the only lake they could stand on. As they said in the meeting last week, they specifically had the engineering firm focus on core depth, and they ignored any of the other safety issues because they know they lose on those issues. The roads are not wide enough, and the shoulders are not large enough to safely handle the type of traffic. At the planning and zoning meeting, the CFS representative, Mr. Ingram, said that ASHTO recommends at least 6-foot graded shoulders for this type of traffic, and confirmed that the road at most has only 2-foot shoulders, which is directly contradicted the report. And these shoulders would protect broken down citizens and emergency vehicles from the wider heavy trucks that would be transporting sand. Currently, these roads leave little margin of error, and that can have deadly consequences due to the newly added truck traffic. Then there is the issue of enforcement. I've spoken with the sheriff, and he confirmed that they do not have the manpower or the training in order to conduct roadside inspections of large commercial vehicles. Leavenworth County doesn't even have an ordinance court to prosecute these violations. How can the county uphold its responsibility to maintain road safety if the court would be responsible doesn't even exist? Call Valley's plan is too vague and allows for far too much wiggle room in many areas. The fact that the proposal has been changed so many times speaks to how they will say anything they need in order to get this approved. But can we trust them to follow through? For instance, they have stated that the plant can be in operation 24/7 during peak times, but what determines those peak times? Who gets to determine that? Is the data that Call Valley has to provide the county in order to prove that they need to operate 24 hours a day, or is it solely dependent on when Call Valley believes it to be necessary? Mining operations have been proposed before and were fought against by the very family that is now living their land to this operation. Nothing has changed regarding the current use of the land since the Springs protested. Despite its zoning, the characteristics remain the same, an agricultural area. Given the recommendation of the Leavenworth County Planning and Zoning Commission, the Leavenworth County Sheriff, and over 700 of the constituents that would be directly affected, please vote no on this special use permit. Thanks.
Thank you. Ready for Paula Jaskina?
Is there any more calling in the second?
I'm also leaving documents.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Paula Juskinia, 13162 158th Street. I'm sure most of us here have a general understanding of how escrow works. An escrow account is set up so money can be deposited to cover estimated real estate taxes and insurance premiums. At last week's meeting, Mr. Joel was asked about the reason for Kaw Valley's previously delinquent real estate property tax status. His response was, it has everything to do with the refinancing that went through where Kaw Valley refinanced with another bank that is now escrowing all the taxes. All the taxes will be escrowed each month for payment of taxes. A bit later, he stated, the dispute why we changed banks is because the bank that Kaw Valley was previously dealing with was to be paying the escrow each month into the taxes each month, and they didn't do that. And Kaw Valley then chose another bank to come in that has financial resources, and as of last Thursday, there was closing on that transaction. It was just a dispute with the bank. So if Kaw Valley's reason for being delinquent with their real estate taxes is because the bank didn't do what it was supposed to do, then I have a question. We have provided proof to this body that Kaw Valley has been delinquent in paying their real estate taxes every single year since at least 2015. This year alone, when they finally paid their taxes a week ago, it included interest of over $27,000 on those delinquent amounts. And they owed clear back to 2017 on some of their properties at that time. My question is then, if the bank wasn't paying the taxes from escrow, why didn't Kaw Valley do something about it in 2015, or 16, or 17, or 18, or 19? Why suddenly, halfway through 2020, is this addressed? Why did they allow themselves to be in a consistently delinquent status for 5.5 years? If this was escrow on your home, you would not let this happen, knowing that each month you're delinquent, you're accruing more interest on top of the amount of taxes that has to be paid. This makes zero business sense. Ultimately, Kaw Valley is responsible for paying their taxes timely. And whatever story they want to give, that has not happened for years. If you approve this SUP, how long before Leavenworth County is going to be saying, we absolutely knew Kaw Valley had a proven history of serious delinquency in their payments to Wyandotte County and MSHA, and now the same is proving true for Leavenworth County. And what are you going to do about it? A couple of years in, you could revoke their SUP, and then what's the county left with? Spending time and resources chasing non-payment and a big old ugly gaping hole in the ground. Thank you.
Are their taxes all paid?
They are now.
Public hearing's over, Mr. Stevens.
I can ask a question.
No, you can't. This is public comment. We're listening. The public
You're saying
hearing,
I cannot ask a question?
I'm saying the public hearing was over last Wednesday.
And this is not a public hearing. I'm asking question of the public, Mr. Chairman.
I say the public hearing ended Wednesday.
Well,
we are here to listen to public comment. And I'm the chairman.
Is my 3 minutes up?
No.
I'd like to add to my comments that their taxes have been paid now in full, as of last week.
Time's up.
Okay, thank you.
Andrea Harrington Summers.
Hi, my name's Andrea Harrington Summers, 15251 Loring Road on the haul route. I'm sorry to bother you again today, but the Kaw Valley attorney spoke last week and said, quote, there are only about $5,000 in MSHA violations, end quote. He was not truthful. Kaw Valley has over $100,000 of MSHA penalties, and as of today, they have 11 more violations. Wow, this seems arbitrary and capricious. So everyone has read the commercial truck excluded resolution saying, quote, these roads are incompatible with the normal and safe movement of said commercial vehicles, end quote. Leavenworth County accepted this resolution. Yes, there's some exceptions, but multiple 18-wheelers on these roads daily and then several hundred sand trucks? Let's take a minute and think. What if a sand truck and a school bus collide? On these curvy roads with no shoulders and blind curves? What if it's your child? What if it's your grandchild? My concern is safety. I hate to tell you this, but my family owns a funeral home. And I have seen way too many accidents that could have been avoided. In my mind, this is totally and completely a safety issue. Caw Valley is saying they'll take the trucks to Edwardsville to wash it. Have you looked at the Edwardsville location? It's an industrial dump. If this is approved, they will be doing everything on site. Dredging, dumping, washing, putting on a conveyor, using a shaker, then drawing and putting it into independent trucking companies. Yes, that's in their application. Trucks will scatter like ants right down 158th by 2 schools, up 170th that is all residential homes, and yes, across the bridge into DeSoto. Truckers will take the easiest route they can, period. Caw Valley has nothing to do with it. It's on the independent truck drivers if they crash into one of us. As stated by both the Bonner Springs and Baser superintendents and Sheriff Andrew Ditkey, safety is a giant concern. The sheriff has said the proposed truck route is simply not in the best interest of Leavenworth County, end quote. He finishes his quote saying, the decision made before you is important, and I trust that this will be made from the standpoint of what is best for Leavenworth County, end quote. Commissioners, we are counting on you to respect the residents of this lovely county and deny this special use permit. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question?
Thank you.
The
public hearing is over. Any questions, Mr.
We have
Stevens?
never restricted a commissioner from being able to ask questions before, Mr.
I'm the chairman.
Smith.
I'm saying
We have never
had a public hearing on it.
We're not having a public hearing, but I have always been able to ask questions at a public comments. Are we going to restrict me from doing that today?
When it's related to a public hearing that is already closed.
Sir, Mr. Smith.
Go ahead and ask your question. Nobody's going to listen to it anyways.
All right. The question was clarification on the fact that you said at the public hearing an inconsistency was made.
Correct.
Can you clarify what that was exactly for my understanding? What was the inconsistency?
This attorney said that there were merely 5,000 MSHA violations. Well, the money was only $5,000 toward the MSHA violations and the penalties that they have supposedly paid. That's what he was saying, but that's incorrect. There's 100,000 out there that they have paid, but there's still more out there.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're ready for community corrections. Rhonda? Oh, we've got the consent. All right. Before we start, we'll do the consent agenda. Does commissioners have anything on the consent agenda? You can stay up here, Ron.
Yeah, this won't take long.
I'll make a motion, or I'll entertain a motion.
Accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the consent agenda items? Voting?
Aye.
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 Commissioner Costos, aye.
All right. We're ready for community corrections. And your grant?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
What I have before you today is a revision of the fiscal year 2021 behavioral health grant. Originally, this grant was wrote for the amount of $70,000. In that original grant, we had included a new staff position that would provide programs for our clients. This was a proposed partnership with Atchison County and Leavenworth County if Atchison County did not receive it on their own. The state has made some cuts, as you can be aware of the financial situation of the state. They are not funding any new positions. So they have revised our budget and are allowing us $3,000. So what I need is a signature of approval to accept the revised budget of $3,000, which those costs will go towards $1,000 for mental health, $1,900 for substance abuse, and $100 for other services like batterers intervention. Basically, we use those funds to pay for assessments or treatment for our clients that can't afford it, or that maybe their insurance doesn't cover all of it, so the providers aren't out the money. So that's what we're here today for, and I'm asking for your approval of the $3,000 budget.
So, Rhonda, that's the biggest implication outside of the inability to further hire. You had a head count as well, right, as a part of that you were planning?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
There was another head count in addition to everything that you just mentioned as far as, testing for any of those that can, et cetera. Like I'm trying to figure out the $67,000 impact to Leavenworth County by the state reducing those funds.
What's that going to mean?
Well, to give you an example, last year we only had a budget of $5,500. So we never had a large amount for this grant in the past. This was something that our office had proposed because of the lack of providers. It was just kind of a out there, let's help the community more type of a thing.
So year over year, our impact's a couple thousand as far as the reduction goes, but it's not allowing us to, again, further build out, hire.
Not at this time.
Testing. Right.
Not at this time.
That's a little better.
Right.
Yeah. Anybody have any questions for Rhonda?
No.
Entertain a motion.
I move we approve the reduced amount that was granted from KDOC of $3,000.
Second.
Have a motion second. Any further discussion? Voting?
Aye.
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 Commissioner Costos, aye.
All right. Thank you, Rhonda.
We wish it was the 70.
All right, thank you. All right. Ready for solid waste? Who's presenting? Oh, I didn't see you back there, Tammy. Sorry.
Good morning.
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 KDHE has granted us a grant to replace our commingled compactor. We were one of 12 that were funded from the Kansas Department of Health and Environment Solid Waste Fee Fund. And so I would just need a signature on 2 applications, or contracts, sorry.
Anyone have any questions on the grant? We've all looked at everything.
Yeah, I've not noticed to turn down any grants.
I was going to say, I hope not.
So far, so good this morning.
Ready for a motion?
I am.
I'll make a motion to approve the chairman to sign the grant contract between Leavenworth County and KDHE for a new commingled compactor.
Second.
Have a motion and second. Any further discussion? Voting.
Aye.
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 Commissioner Costos, aye.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Tommy.
Run along. Got 2 places.
Yeah, on each one.
3.
No, there's 2 on each one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Got to see you 2 days in a row. Yes.
Yeah, we could have done this yesterday, huh?
And nice.
Room here. Okay, that should get you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
See you, Tammy.
Is it Sheriff?
Commissioners, the sheriff's on his way over. He asked if we could handle Public Works next. That would give him time to get over here.
Okay. Mr. Knoll? How are you today?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Morning, Bill.
All right. Members of the board, today we have a proposal for a policy. This policy involves land acquisition for county projects. The proposed policy provides staff a written document that outlines the monetary offers that will be made to landowners for the acquisition of real property. These acquisitions include permanent road right-of-way, permanent drainage easements, and temporary construction easements. The approval of this policy provides a guide for this acquisition process that allows the process to be equal and transparent. It is based upon county appraisal data. Further appraisals, if required, would be completed through a court proceeding process, and that would involve 3 separate appraisals appointed by the court. So this process is the most cost-effective and fastest procedure available to the county in order to avoid incurring additional costs at the time of the initial offer for the land acquisition. Obviously, this policy can be revisited, but the current policy as it states is it's going to take the current county appraised value plus a 25% adage, as these are very small tracts of ground, so that does supplement any time required by the property owner to provide the documentation and maybe come to the courthouse and sign it. Drainage easements are 50% of the value of permanent right-of-way, and temporary constructions easements are 25% of the value of permanent road right-of-way. Obviously, there are some situations that are outside the scope of definition. These include non-cattle panel driveway gates, decorative landscaping, or mature growth hardwood trees that may require some sort of assessment prior to their value being appraised. The other part of this process is fencing. Fencing is fairly common. This policy outlines that fencing be offered at $10 a lineal foot for typical barbed wire fencing and $12 a lineal foot for woven wire fencing. Any questions the board may have, I can try to answer them today. It is the policy as was presented in work session.
This will just speed up eminent domain.
This will take the land acquisition process and limit it to not more than 45 days from the time that the initial offer is made for the property owner to determine whether or not they are going to accept that offer, after which time the county would move forward with the eminent domain process that does involve 3 appraisals. It is important to get these processes moved forward for right-of-way acquisition in order to relocate utilities. And if we were to be fortunate enough to receive any grants in the future, those have generally very specific time frames that this policy would allow us to adhere to.
Okay. So that pretty much leaves no negotiation, just this is our policy, this is what we're going to pay. If they don't accept, then it goes to eminent domain and speeds the process up.
Yes, that is correct. It's as presented in the work session, there is a letter that is not specifically part of the policy, but is a draft of the letter that we would utilize within Public Works. And it specifically states that myself and other Public Works staff do not have the authority to negotiate offers on a one-on-one basis. The offer that is initially made by the county is going to stand as the county's offer for the property. Future valuations of the property are going to be based upon court-ordered appraisals if the valuation is deemed by the landowner to not be equal to their property's value.
Okay. Anybody have any questions, Mr. Knoll?
No, I think we were pretty thorough in the work session. The reality is we've been incredibly inconsistent in how we've acquired easements, and our delays to projects have been substantial. So,
and what I like about it is it goes right to pretty much getting 3 appraisals. So you're not taking one appraiser's word for it, which is pretty much how we've operated in the past. You're going to go right to 3 appraisals, and then you can average those or whatever.
Okay.
But you'll know it's a better value.
Okay. And I'll entertain a motion to on the land acquisition policy.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and second. Any further discussion on the land acquisition policy? Voting?
Aye.
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 Commissioner Costos, aye.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Bill.
All right, thank
Thanks,
you,
Bill.
guys. I'll leave a copy for signature.
Okay. Have we, the sheriff?
I'll see if he's out there.
Ready to put an underground tunnel. It's raining out there.
Yeah. I'm sure you can do lights and sirens and just park out front.
Right.
Sheriff, how are you today?
Good, thank you.
Morning.
I believe most of you know that for the jail and juvenile detention center, we contract with Summit Food Service to provide meals and the necessary nutritional planning for those meals. Every year the price is adjusted according to the CPI, and so typically we do an addendum to the contract. And that's what I'm here this morning for, is for the addendum for the upcoming year. On average, it will affect the cost per meal from 3 to 6 cents. Our population is currently low because of the COVID. However, as population goes up, the price per meal will go down. It is anticipated that the difference in the amount of the contract will equate to about $6,400 for this coming up year, which is a budgeted expense. So my request is that the board authorize the chairman to sign the addendum for this upcoming year.
I'd rather pay higher meals for less inmates and cheaper meals for more inmates. Any questions of the sheriff on this contract?
Right here.
I entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the chairman to sign the annual amendment to the food service contract with CBM Managed Services.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? And voting?
Aye.
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 Commissioner Costos, aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sheriff.
Yours is easy.
Andy, were you able to outrun the rain? Nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Okay.
It's open, I think. No,
No,
I
got it.
thought we did.
Got it. All right. Any other business before we go to our executive session? I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
I move that the board recess for a closed executive session meeting for discussion of subject involving the legal interests of the county justified by KSA 75-4319B2 for consultation with legal counsel for the board, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship, and that the board resume open meeting at, how long do you need?
Commissioner Culberson, I'd request 15 minutes.
I was thinking 10.
I was thinking a half hour.
Why don't we compromise on 15
No, 10 o'clock,
minutes?
so we're on the same page. Not 10 minutes. I was thinking 10 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
So.
At 10 o'clock. In the meeting room of the board, present in executive session will be Commissioners Culberson, Cos, Shimke, Smith, Stephen, Senior County Councilor Dave Van Paris, and County Administrator Mark Lawfrey.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Voting?
Aye.
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 Commissioner Costos, aye.
Let the record show we've returned from executive session to regular session. Discussion was limited to legal issues or legal interest of the county. No decisions were made. We're back in regular session. And we are considering a motion for the Call Valley Sand Quarry, SUP. Crystal?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners.
Morning.
I do not have to tell you what we are here for this morning, but I will. This is a request to consider a motion for Resolution 2020-23, a special use permit for Kaw Valley Sand Mining located at 166 in Lenape. As we've previously discussed, the public hearing was closed last week at the special board meeting that we had for this case. We have some representatives from Olson here if you all have any questions for them. Staff's recommendation is, of course, approval with all conditions, including the rebuilding of the road. That is staff's recommendation. Staff does not deviate from that recommendation in any way. If you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them. And again, Mitch and Tom and Ian are all here with Olson.
Anyone have any questions of Olson or Crystal?
I do have a question.
For Crystal?
Yeah, both.
Okay.
In the letter from, and this is from Mitch, so you said paragraph, regardless of the discrepancy, and it's on page 2, I guess, the backside. Regardless of the discrepancy of lifespan remaining, it is still significantly less than the sand plant's operational time of 25 years. Based on the report by Kaw Valley, maintenance will be required during the 10 years, and at the end of 10 years, substantial maintenance will be required. According to Kaw Valley, substantial maintenance would involve a mill and overlay to the roadway. In our opinion, assuming only a mill and overlay will be required after 10 years of continued truck traffic on an approximately 80-year-old roadway would not be sufficient. Question is, with the tonnage that they're going to be operating, is that primarily the basis for your evaluation of that, the tonnages?
I'll let Ian answer that question.
Could he come forward, please, and state his name?
So, sorry, I'm going to take my mask off.
You can take it off.
Okay. So basically, we use easels, equivalent single axle loadings, to determine the structural capacity of the roadway. So what Kaw Valley did was Kaw Valley Engineering, they gave an ultimate easel for that roadway, and then said, well, we think that roadway has 50% life left, right? And then that gave an easel value of around $500,000. And using that number, based on the truckload that's coming in, you can calculate the number of easels because the trucks weigh a certain amount. And an easel is just basically 18,000-pound load on a single axle. So every truck has, let's say that those trucks have 2 or 3 axles, so take the weight and just basically it's a simple calculation to get your easels. And then you add them all up over that period of time, and over that 10-year lifespan, you come up with that basically $524,000 based on how they did their calculations, which means that the life of the roadway at 10 years is complete. That's it. I mean, so if you follow the Ashton 93 method, which is what they did, you get a certain, you determine a certain lifespan, which they use 20 years, which is pretty common. That's what we would use too. And you would say, well, you get this many easels total, and once that easel value has run to its limit, then the roadway needs to be rebuilt. That's the end of the lifespan of the roadway. So now, during that 20-year lifespan, you do need to do continued maintenance to get to 20 years, and maintenance could include, seal coats, crack sealing, mill and overlays, chip and seals on county roadways, etc. So.
Mr. Chairman, could you ask the speaker to identify themselves?
Oh, I'm sorry.
My name is Ian Dillon. I'm a geotechnical engineer for Olson.
Okay, and in your letter it says the structural capacity of the roadway will reach its design life in 7 to 10 years from the start of the sand plant operation. And then it continues, but it's still classified as maintenance and preservation by FHWA, and in our opinion, it will likely only increase the life of the pavement for a few more years. Continued use of the sand plant trucks will noticeably accelerate the deterioration and new wearing course and or additional wearing courses if constructed and significantly decrease the overall structure capacity of the roadway, especially the pavement base, leading to more deep-seated failures such as potholing, rutting, random cracking, reflected cracking, and transverse cracking from the brittle pavement layers below the new surface of the courses. And then you continue. It's our opinion that after the life of 7 to 10 years, the pavement will have reached the end of life per the AASHTO design guide and per the definitions provided by FHWA. We anticipate the full depth removal and replacement with possible subgrade stabilization will be required at that time. So in essence, the rebuild of the road.
Correct.
Thanks.
Why would you do a mill on a chip seal road? Why wouldn't you just overlay it, tie in some driveways, and put a AB3 shoulder on
It
it?
depends on the surface. So you would look at if you're just going to do, so if you go, it's based on our observation. So if we go out there and we see a lot of hairline cracks or reflective cracking or transition cracking, putting a chip and seal over it is not going to do anything. It's just going to
I asked about why would you mill a chip seal road then overlay it? Why wouldn't you just overlay a chip seal road?
So if you have a lot of cracking, you would have to mill that surface down, get rid of those cracks, put some kind of, and then seal coat the cracks or do something to prevent the cracking from coming up through the mill.
And you can seal coat it and then overlay it, or seal the cracks and overlay it.
That doesn't work. I mean, it just doesn't last. In my opinion, and from what I've seen, you'll get maybe 2 years out of it before reflective cracking starts showing up again in the exact same spot that the cracks are already at. Those seals don't. I mean, if you just use emulsified asphalt, is that what you're talking about? Just using emulsified asphalt from the back of a truck and sealing it? That doesn't work.
On crack sealing. I'm talking crack sealing, not chip sealing the whole road.
I know.
Chip seal your cracks.
So, yeah, I agree. I mean, crack sealing is a good thing to do to keep doing over the lifespan. But what crack sealing does is it prevents water from infiltrating the subgrade, and the subgrade would then weaken. So that's what crack sealing does. Crack sealing, before you put an overlay on top of it, really doesn't do anything to prevent that crack from propagating upwards. What you'd have to use is something like a glass grid or some kind of performance-enhancing grid over that crack to prevent the actual crack from reforming again.
Like asphalt. Asphalt over.
Yeah, well, the crack will come with it's called a reflective crack basically, and if you have a crack below, it's going to crack. It's going to come up to the surface within a year or two. That's just the nature of the beast with asphalt. So.
And where did you get that it was an 80-year-old road?
That's a 70-year-old road. That was in the report by Call Valley Engineering.
Okay, well, Loring is not that old.
Okay.
It was based in hard surfaced in the 70s.
Okay. Was the report from Call Valley Engineering what we were basing on?
Okay. Any other questions of Representative Molson?
Any idea or conjecture on the cost of
which
reconstruction?
Of a complete removal and all that? It depends on when you do it, and it depends on the subgrade condition at the time. I mean, there's a lot of
variables. Very costly.
That can come
Some concept engineering would need to be done to provide that type of cost estimate.
Okay.
10-15%.
Could you please come forward, state your name for the record, please?
Mitch Blake Olson, 7301 3rd Street, 101 Park. To answer your question, we would want to do some concept designs or a design, 10-15%. That would allow us to come up with a cost estimate as far as reconstructing the roadway.
Okay. But the bottom line on this letter is, like your last paragraph is that your recommendation would be full removal and replacement and possible subgrade stabilization. Thank you.
And traffic count on that road?
I didn't do the traffic study, I only did the pavement thickness study, so subgrade study.
Okay. Okay. Yes, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Tom Fulton. I'm a vice president and technical leader in our traffic engineering group at Olson, 7301 West 133rd Street, Overland Park, Kansas. Your question was the ADT. And basically, the consultant that did the traffic study did do some ADT counts, and going off memory, because I don't have a page, but I think it's around 1,600 daily traffic.
What day?
Well, the county's record's a little different.
And of that, something to note, it's roughly a little over 3% trucks is what they identified on several different roads, like 3.27 or so.
You know what date that was taken?
Yeah, they have it in here. I think it was September of 2019, memory, and I don't think it had that.
Day of the week?
What day of the week is that?
Okay.
I can figure it out.
2:30 p.m. One of the counts was Thursday, October 24th, 2019. And I thought they had another they identified as September, but roughly September, October. Just for what they do and what we review, when you do a traffic study, you typically look at a typical weekday, and that could be a Tuesday through a Thursday. We don't do them on Mondays or Fridays because traffic patterns change. It's different for COVID now, but people have a tendency to get paid on Friday, and then they take off or they don't show up. It's just an anomaly. Now, if you're doing a shopping center or something like that, then you would look at a Saturday or even a Sunday if it was a church. In this case, it's a typical weekday, so even if, and we did review that, and they did do it on a typical weekday.
And is this study and these recommendations based on that traffic count?
It is. Not the ADT. Typically, ADTs are for informational purposes on traffic study, but what they do is they take a 1 hour in the morning, 7 to 9, and 4 to 6 p.m., 1 hour in the p.m., and then they do all the analysis based off that 1 hour window. And that's because it's the highest of the roadway system at that given time. And that's how they follow and what we agreed on. Does that answer your questions?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think what the difference is between what we got and.
Well, I think ours would have been probably a lot older, and they were actually on site. And I'm not saying they. When I say they, it's not Olson. I believe it was Caw Valley Engineering who did that, but they were on site doing their count. Ours is just a tube out there, which can be manipulated.
We also use a radar counter.
On some occasions, and I wouldn't have known which one.
Right.
Traffic.
Well, we usually use both.
We were awful byways.
I think that would just make the numbers worse, actually. If you used our traffic count, it would probably accelerate the easels.
But if our traffic count, which is higher, was correct, then the deterioration of the road would be actually faster.
I couldn't answer that because I had to deal with the information that was provided me.
Right.
But I do want to say that I was correct first, and going back and looking, it was September 2019, and they did it on several roadways, but it ranged anywhere from 900 and something to, I believe, that 1,600 number. But on all the roads that they did look at within the study area, it roughly was a little over 3% trucks. And they're going to add 160, I believe, per day.
Could you come forward, please?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, what he's talking about is your
State your name.
State your name, please.
Ian Dillon, geotech engineer for Olson. So every time you add a vehicle, you add easel loads to the roadway, and so the higher the traffic count, the higher the easel load. So the less the pavement will last. Yes.
So if our traffic count's right, the deterioration will be even faster.
Well, that's correct. But if you're designing a roadway for 20 years, if you're designing a roadway for 20 years, and you have a million easels to design with. You basically, the only way to come up to make it work is to make the pavement thicker. So basically, so what I'm saying is, the more traffic you have, the thicker the roadway would have to be
For the replacement.
for the replacement.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Well, just an observation would be the roadway would be similar on a road that's going to have 2,000 cars a day and a road that's going to have 10,000 cars a day. The difference is the amount of maintenance and scheduling of maintenance over time. You don't build a lower quality road. I'm just saying that in comparison between the two, if your counts were to go up hundreds or a few thousand as far as cars, this use case is different. But cars, your maintenance schedule may be impacted. You're not going to build a different kind of road.
Commissioners, am I allowed to make any kind of rebuttal to the comments made by?
Our public hearing's closed.
That's my concern.
If someone has a question, they can ask you.
But my concern is that there's a public hearing last week.
There is.
No one from Olson had the time to come up here and answer these questions and rebut it.
Olson was represented, though.
Pardon me?
Olson was represented.
Well,
If they have any other questions. Anybody ready to make a motion?
I move that the application for the special use permit submitted by Caw Valley Companies, LLC, be approved based upon the following findings and subject to the following conditions. My motion to approve the SUP application in case DEB 19-008. The application of Caw Valley Companies, LLC, is based upon my review and consideration of the entire record presented to me in this matter, and specifically with respect to my application of the evidence as applied to the following factors. The neighborhood, while zoned industrial, Factor 1, in the neighborhood, while zoned industrial, is currently primarily comprised of large agricultural tracts with several residential properties, mostly located in the north subject tract and approximately 1/2 mile from the proposed mining site. A golf course is located south of the subject tract. Number 2, zoning and uses of nearby property. The immediate and the area surrounding the subject tract is zoned I3 heavy industrial. North of the subject tract and separated from it by railroad tracks, which carry a significant amount of rail traffic, is zoned Rural Route 2.5, rural residential. The primary use of the area immediately surrounding the tract is agricultural, with residential properties approximately 1/2 mile from the proposed mining site and golf course located south of the subject tract. The proposed use is allowable through the issuance of a special use permit. Number 3, suitability of the property for the uses to which it has been restricted. The subject property is located within a corridor property zoned I3 heavy industrial. The proposed use is allowable with the special use permit and is suitable for the zoning category. Number 4, extent to which removal of the restrictions will detrimentally affect nearby property. If the application is approved, the surrounding area will experience an increase in heavy truck traffic. There will be an increase in noise in the area, although within the acceptable limits for the area surrounding the subject tract. The impact of the increase in traffic to this nearby area will be largely reduced through the proposed road improvements that will be required and paid for by the applicant. The proposed road improvements, as outlined in the Olson report provided to the board, will also address the detrimental effect on road safety and road surface quality resulting from the increased heavy truck traffic. The overall detrimental impact to the nearby property is minimal and addressed through the conditions proposed by staff. Number 5, length of time the property has been vacant as zoned. The subject property has been used for agricultural purposes for at least the past 2 decades. Number 6, relative gain to the economic development, public health, safety, and welfare. The proposed use will create jobs, it will generate tax revenues to the county, and will provide a needed resource, sand and gravel, for use within the county and the Kansas City metropolitan area. I find the estimated decrease in property values in the area affected by the proposed use to be speculative. The proposed use does not create any threat to public health and will have minimal environmental impact. The proposed use is, in my opinion, and based upon the record, the best use of the subject property. The safety and welfare of the citizens within the areas affected by the proposed use are appropriately addressed through the conditions recommended by staff and the proposed plan for the improvement of the roads impacted. The past safety record of the applicant's operations is within industry standards, and the payment of local property taxes is assured by the applicant and can be enforced by existing Kansas law. Number 7, conformance to the comprehensive plan. The future land use map indicates the area as floodplain, and the industrial mining of sand is a common land use in the floodplain areas along rivers. The proposed use is in conformity with the comprehensive plan. My motion also includes an adoption by reference of the findings and recommendations contained in the staff report dated July 8, 2020, and the Olson report dated June 23, 2020. The SUC shall be limited, number 1, the SUC shall be limited to a period of 25 years with annual staff evaluations, including calculations of impact fees. The application shall be a specified route or roadway up to county standards prior to hauling. Design and construction of the roadway shall be funded entirely by the applicant. Complete funds for the improvement shall be received by the county prior to design. Funds may need to be adjusted as the project progresses through construction. The design and construction shall be in conformity with the guidelines presented to the board in the Olson report dated June 23rd, 2020. Number 3, a formal executed agreement between the county and the applicant dealing with all requirements and responsibilities of such improvements will be required. Number 4, the applicant shall build a berm along the southern property line. A mixture of greens and deciduous trees shall be planted along the berm. The applicant shall submit a landscape plan design and sealed by a landscape architect staff to review and approval. The planting shall be substantial so that they provide screening and noise barrier to the golf course to their south. The trees shall be maintained throughout the duration of the special use permit. Number 5, all operations shall not take place within the 105 feet from the center of either 166th Street or Lenape Road. All activity shall be a minimum of 40 feet from the property line. All activity along the southern parcel boundary shall be a minimum of 80 feet from the property line. Number 6, machinery shall be well maintained and lubricated to reduce noise. Number 7, the submitted site plan shall be updated to include the addition of a 26-foot wide private driveway. The driveway shall apply to all sheets of the site plan. Number 8, there shall be no truck traffic associated with the development traveling south on 166th Street into DeSoto. Number 9, gate braking will be prohibited. Number 10, trucks shall use only the designated route as approved with a special use permit. Number 11, all trucks exiting the site will be weighed and must meet legal limits prior to exiting the site. Number 12, Trucks shall not enter the site prior to 7 a.m. and shall exit the site no later than 3 p.m. Monday through Friday. Number 13, noise shall be limited to 65 dBs along property lines adjacent to the residential zone parcel. Number 14, dredging operations shall be limited to the hours of 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Monday through Saturday. Number 15, the applicants shall file a surface mining permit with the Kansas Department of Health and Environment. This shall be submitted to the Leavenworth counties upon completion. Number 16, the special use permit shall be limited to 5 full-time employees, not including truck operators. Number 17, the applicant shall comply with the recommendations in the following memorandum. Chuck McGaha, Brittany Reed with Emergency Management, Brittany Breed with Electric Utility, Janelle Phillips, Professional Engineer, State of Kansas, David R. Hipp, Department of the Army, and Larry Hook, State of Kansas. Number 18, no signage is allowed in the right-of-way. No signage is requested with the special use permit. All signage shall comply with Article 25 sign regulations of the Leavenworth County Zoning and Subdivision Regulations. Number 19, no on-street parking will be allowed. Number 20, the special use permit shall be limited to the narrative dated June 28, 2019, and noise study dated June 19th submitted with this application. Number 21, the special use permit shall adhere to the dust control plan dated February 18th, 2020, with the exception that all sand loads shall be parked. And number 22, this SUP shall comply with all local, state, and federal rules and regulations that may be applicable. After approval of this special use permit by the Board of County Commissioners, all conditions listed shall be compiled with the supporting documentation that shall be provided to the Planning and Zoning Department within 30 days, the exception of the required road design and construction. That concludes my motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Before you ask for a second, I was going to see if maybe Commissioner Cos would amend her motion. I seen that it covers all the safety issues on the roadway, are addressed, which covers the sheriff's concerns. But I think what kind of a road we need and what we have is highly speculative. I think a lot more work needs to be done to figure out exactly what kind of road we need. So if a Super 2 highway is required after that investigation, I wonder if she would amend her motion to include a clawback provision, whereas this would just be the first business to go into this industrial area. The next several businesses that go into this industrial area would pay Call Valley back for the initial investment they put into building such a superhighway, and figure out what kind of amounts that would be at a later date.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, this is David Van Paris. In response to Commissioner Culbertson's inquiry or statement, clawback provisions are not an uncommon provision when an applicant for any development that affects a municipality is required to invest more or less in what becomes public infrastructure. In this case, the issue would be the formula that would be used to reimburse the developer, which in this case would be the applicant, for their investment. Would it be the first person on the road pays them back half? Would it be a proportionate share based upon the linear frontage of the roadway? Would it be based upon a calculation of the amount of traffic that the new use generated? So that is an issue that would, quite frankly, have to be looked into as far as which formula would be most appropriate. If you wish to insert a clawback provision for the purpose of allowing this matter to proceed this morning, my suggestion would be that the language be that an appropriate clawback provision be calculated so as to reimburse the applicant for their, in order to provide that they pay only their proportionate share of the improvement that premised upon future development within the corridor.
This is Commissioner Paz. I would be willing to amend my motion to include that stipulation.
Okay. I have a motion, amended motion. Do I have a second?
Well, another quick question or thought would be, listening to all the public comment last week, in understanding that there are improvements that we'd like to make to this roadway regardless of a new business coming into that area. If the county already realizes that a certain amount of expense is going to go into a roadway to just try to maintain and keep current conditions, that also seems like it could be a component of a clawback, provision, so that we're going to have some amount of cost associated with trying to keep current use maintained. And now we're looking at a scenario that would potentially drastically improve rather than just maintain. And so almost some type of a credit, for lack of a better term, or if it's a part of the clawback provision, but those costs are going into helping to maintain and improve our over 700 miles of roadway.
And I think the way David's worded that, it's open-ended to include the county in the clawback provision. Is that right, Dave?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, if I could offer technical state assistance, it might be appropriate to insert the proposed amendment language into Section 3, or number 3 of the conditions, to more or less be, and this is very rough, be amended to read: a formal executed agreement between the county and the applicant detailing all requirements and responsibility for such improvements will be required to include an appropriate clawback provision to provide the applicant reimbursement in proportion to their share of the future use of the road, something to that effect. I think the intent is, it's commonly referred to as a clawback provision. The details, however, are going to have to be negotiated, just as the details of the formal executed agreement between the county and the applicant would need to be finalized before the special use permit would become effective, if approved by the board.
Commissioner Cos, I would be willing to add that language to condition number 3.
Okay. Could you read that again?
No.
I want to know exactly what we're voting on.
Well, Commissioner, a clawback provision is this. If I'm going to use a water line as an example because I'm somewhat familiar with that. You want to build a house. Your house is a half mile away from the existing water main. You will need a 2-inch line for your house. My plan for the future envisions that there will be additional development in that area, so I want to put a 12-inch main in there. You're going to be required to pay for in that case, you would pay for the cost of the 2 inches, and I would pay the difference on the 10. The alternate scenario that would require a clawback is that, and it could be applied in that, is if subsequent to your paying to put in your share of the line in, someone else moves in, a formula would be devolved or calculated to require that person to pay you via the municipality a share of the cost that you incurred in putting that line in initially. If you invested $100 and over time 2 more houses came on that, you'd each eventually be paying $33.33.
I understand the concept, but I guess I'm trying to figure out how we're plugging in what Commissioner Shimke included was that the county would.
Well, it sounds like there were no exclusions to it. The idea is going to be that if an agreement were to be reached, it's going to have provisions so that, again, if there was already investment that the county was going to incur, or, again, if we're going to look at other industries or entities to come in, ways that would take some of that burden away from the applicant to take, to David's point, the example of a 2-inch versus a 12-inch. It may be that the current needs were only for 2, and that cost for the 2 would have been on the county, but now the use case has changed, and so the 12-inch is required. Well, then there's a natural gap, and so making it so that a single user isn't responsible for any and all incurred expenses over time of a project when others benefit from it.
And again, Commissioners, Condition 3 contemplated that there would be additional negotiation between the county and the applicant if the special use permit were to be approved prior to it becoming effective, and that negotiation would result in the executed agreement. It's similar to when you let a bid and you accept the low bid, you still have to negotiate the contract before it's effective, and that would be a similar scenario in this case. I would suggest whatever language you wish to finally utilize, that number 3 be amended to include an appropriate clawback provision to provide for the applicant to be reimbursed for approximately their proportionate share of the improvements. But it would be reimbursement from future users of the road. Now, if during those negotiations the county decided to change the recommendation with respect to the applicant bearing the cost of the improvement, I would suggest you also amend Section 2 to state subject to negotiation. But the more negotiation you put into these things, the more uncertainty creeps into it.
Well, I think Commissioner Shimke's analysis is accurate. I mean, the county's on the hook for the traffic that's on it at this time, or whatever the traffic count would be. We're from 900 to 1,600 to 2,000, and then the other one's 4,000, and then you get down on the 166 part that goes into DeSoto, it could be up to 7,000. So we do have a little responsibility here. And
I think what's being contemplated is, in effect, a development agreement, and that would have to come back to the board for approval. So this is not a negotiation in the dark. Once we can get some terms put down on paper, there would be a development agreement that's part of this that would have to come back to this board for approval. So anything that is being contemplated here, we would have time to vet and work out the kinks. But I don't
with her
change. The change, I think, is I'm comfortable with that. It allows us the ability to move forward.
And I have one other question. I know we haven't got a second. We haven't done discussion yet. But how are we going to measure the noise level on the decimals when you got trains that run through there 24 hours a day?
Mr. Chairman, I believe there is information contained in the record on the estimated decibel levels at certain points along the subject property created by the proposed operations. That's contained in the record. The train traffic obviously does create additional noise, but I believe there was information in the record provided to the board members regarding the decibel levels and noise. I'd also add, as I've done on other cases, even if you permit a user to operate within certain noise levels, if their noise becomes such that it creates a public nuisance, then the county could intervene and or a private property owner could intervene.
I'd like to see you intervene with the railroad.
It is noted in the...
I know. I said it is. You got two crossings there, and it is...
And Commissioner Cos's motion noted the existence of the railroad, which carries significant traffic.
It does. Okay. Is there any other questions of our staff or the county councilor, senior county councilor, before someone makes a second? I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
No, I think I would add some comments that while there's been tremendous feedback over the course of this project, and some, I think, questionable recommendations throughout, we've been in a place where we've increased our engineering acumen, capability, and experience in the way of how we recommend projects of this size going forward. And while financials, I think, have been of great interest of all those involved, those largely fall outside of our purview as well. We're limited in what we're here to decide or rule on. And I think clearly roads and safety have been what's been echoed throughout, and that's been the focus of our group. And I want to thank everybody on all sides, because there has been tremendous points and feedback and engagement throughout. So,
Mr. Chairman, with respect to, I'm hopeful might be my final input in your deliberations, just a reminder on a technical basis, any final motion would be in the form of adoption of a resolution. In this case, it would be Resolution 2020-23 as amended through discussion by the board. But
I would amend that language.
And that comes at the end of your discussion, should that occur.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a couple points.
Okay.
On this issue, it's not just about the roads, and I'd like to read into the record the golden rule factors that are in opposition to this. Number one, the character of the neighborhood. Zoning notwithstanding, this area has developed as primarily agriculture and residential. The character of the area is in the nature of small farms, agriculture, and country estates, including the newly approved foster care community within 1,000 feet of the proposed development. There is no infrastructure currently in existence to support the proposed use. That would be point number one of the golden rules. Point number two is the zoning and uses of property nearby. Nearby property, while technically zoned industrial, is in no means industrial in nature. It includes farms, small country estates, foster care communities, and a golf course. Thus, the actual usage indicates something other than industrial. No industrial usage like sand mining has ever been present or permitted at that location. Number three, the suitability of the property for the uses to which it has been restricted under its existing zoning. The area is not suitable for proposed usage as a sand mine because of its close proximity to residential housing, golf courses, farming, and a residential foster care facility within 1,000 feet. Number four, the extent to which removal of the restrictions will detrimentally affect nearby property. The current usage of the property has been long-term, over 30 years, and as agricultural, residential, and it includes a golf course and a foster care community within 1,000 feet that this board has approved. This is no justification or for the proper infrastructure to make a change to the current usage. Current usage has resulted in increasing property valuations and revenues to the county. A change in usage would result in lower valuations and lower revenues to the county, some estimates up to $7 million worth of lower revenues to the county, for one estimate. And even the applicant acknowledges that the valuations and thus the amount they pay to property taxes would be lowered. Number five, length of time of any vacancy of the property. The usage has been residential agriculture, including golf courses, a foster care community, over a long period of time, notwithstanding the technical designation as zoned industrial. The actual usage is as it has been for over 30 years. Number six, relative gain to the public, safety, and welfare by destruction of the value of the applicant's property as compared to the hardship or other individual landowners. Per the objections of the planning and zoning staff, county staff, and the planning commission, which voted to deny the application, there are serious questions about public safety and welfare. And at this time, I'd like to cite a couple comments from the sheriff. We did receive a letter from the sheriff on the traffic input, and I'll just read the conclusion. What is the benefit to Leavenworth County? I cannot imagine any perceived benefit will surpass the cost to Leavenworth County residents in the present or future. The proposed truck route is simply not in the best interest of Leavenworth County. This business type is not in line with road construction in the manner of 222nd Street, US 2440, K32, Warning, or other areas in that vicinity. The decision before you is important. I trust as well as all decisions you collectively make will be made from that standpoint. The enforceability of the laws, local traffic and driver compensation, and what the impact would be are the points that the sheriff reviews. And I point that out as evidence on that point number 6. Also, we received letters from the school district in Bonner Springs and Basor concerned about traffic issues, safety for their school buses with so many additional trucks coming onto the roads. And we have received a letter from the Unified Government of Wyandotte County requesting safety issues be looked into before this would be approved. So that is point number 6. The staff recommendation is part of the golden rules. Number 8, conformance with the comprehensive plan. Does the request agree with the adopted plan recommendations? The adopted comprehensive plan includes areas recommended for industrial use, and those were cited as County Road 1 corridor and the corridors between Leavenworth, Basor, and Tonganoxie. This area was not contemplated as industrial zone, but rather as residential. Finally, a couple areas. In another court decision, which is handed down in 1973, there was a discussion. The special use at the specified location will not adversely affect the welfare or convenience of the public is a factor that we are to take into effect. Certainly, this will affect the welfare and convenience of the public. The proposed special use will not cause substantial injury to the value of other property in the neighborhood in which it is to be located is another factor we're to take into effect under the court precedents. We've already been told by the applicant it's going to lower property values. So we have evidence to know that it will cause substantial injury to those property owners. The location and size of the special use permit, the nature and intensity of the operations involved in or conducted in connection with it, and the location of the site with respect to streets giving access to it, and the traffic are to be considered. So the estimates on the value of the property and all of these reasons, dealing with the golden factor, which are the factors that we can consider, there are numerous reasons to validate the public health, safety, welfare concerns of the people of that area, and the courts have upheld that we are allowed as a body to value those things. And let's look at these factors, let's take them into account, and let's value them. Let's value Leavenworth County. Let's value that area. We have lots of country estates. People are moving in from Johnson County. They're moving in from Douglas County. They're building acreages. Folks, this does not fit in with the development in that area of what we've had in recent years.
So did you say staff did not support this application?
I said as far as the rebuilding of the road.
Yeah. The staff's recommendation is to rebuild the road.
Right. And to the extent, as far, yeah.
Staff recommended
I'm correcting
approval.
Staff.
As long
I
as
stand corrected on that.
And then
point.
So with the sheriff's letter, he was concerned with the existing road. He didn't comment on if we rebuild a new road. Correct?
That's correct. But I cited all of the golden factors and various issues beyond the road, which are the characteristics of the neighborhood, what it's going to do to the people out there, how it's going to affect that area. It is something we are allowed to take into account under the law. And that is what we should do. We should take into account what is our lawful consideration, and we should take into account the input we have received that gives us evidence on those issues. Furthermore, I think before we would make a decision, I think there's many discrepancies in what the public hearing results were last week, and I think there's a number of things that were incorrect that were stated at the public hearing, and it would behoove us to go back and review each of those before we put our stamp of approval on something that maybe is based on, maybe there are applications for approvals that are still outstanding. Maybe there are, but do we know for sure that every I has been dotted and every T has been crossed before we make this decision? And I think that's something important for the commission.
But this Leavenworth County does not supersede KDHE, Corps of Engineers.
I didn't say it did.
That's what I'm saying. So the necessary permits that the applicant has gotten, we have nothing to do with it.
But we have several of the documents say that the applicant will comply with various licensures and approvals, and if we don't know for sure that that has taken place, or if some of those have lapsed, then that is something that we should take into account.
If they do not, but even if they do not, it's not this agency that it'd be the state or federal agencies.
Then they wouldn't be able to operate if they
Well,
tried.
we would have to go into the application, but there are a number of documents that cite the fact that certain things have to be approved before it moves forward. And those were cited within the...
And I believe they were approved or they wouldn't have gotten to us.
Well, I have had conflicting information from the citizens, and that is why I say maybe we should take more time and find out if that's correct or not.
I believe our staff is already...
I don't believe they've had time. I will, Mr. Lawfrey and Crystal, have you had time to evaluate or review in complete detail every part of the objections that have been stated and brought forward on the public hearing?
I think the conditions in the special use permit, as they call out, require that they meet any of those guidelines. So whether they were in compliance today and it expired, they would still have to update any of those. And if there was a challenge to it later, it would be through the state or the federal regulatory body. And again, they would have to meet those. That's part of the use permit. And even if we didn't make it part of our use permit, that agency would be able to come in and shut them down for failure to have the appropriate licenses or permits. So
that's correct, but you don't know for sure.
I don't work for the state or for FEMA, so I don't know for sure. That is.
But whether it's a boarding home, a daycare, a doggy daycare, whatever it may end up being, it's an outside agency that provides that oversight.
Okay.
And if they don't get those approved, they don't operate. We don't control it, but they have to get those. If they've expired, then they've got to get them renewed, or if they haven't got them approved but said they did, if they didn't, then they don't operate. So I think what you're saying is, did they get these permits or not? Doesn't matter to us. If they don't get them, they don't operate.
That's correct, but if the applicant states they have them and we find out that that's not true, I think that reflects on the veracity of the application and the applicant.
Commissioner Stevens, you're a licensed realtor, correct? Correct. Still got your license. Okay. Do land values decrease, say, next to something that's zoned industrial, and then across the street's not zoned industrial? And hey, I'm going to build a house here, but I'm across the street from heavy industrial zoning. Does that decrease the value of the land?
It's the standard realtor answer: location, location, location. It just depends.
Okay. So, in your professional opinion, there could be a reduced valuation just because it's across from heavy industrial.
It's possible. It's possible. But I'm as far as the property value thing, I just am going by what the applicant said in the public hearing. He said that within a certain parameter, it would be expected that property values would drop, and he testified to that effect. And that itself is a problem for me to vote for this. Just that fact. All
right. Is there any further discussion? Commissioner Cause, you have anything before we go for a vote?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. Would it be appropriate to explain our votes? Or we just...
Well, I may regret this, but it probably wouldn't hurt.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Stevens, how do you vote? Could you explain your vote?
Well, I think I've read. Do you want me to read through every point that I just read through? That my explanation is the development does not fit within the golden factors as I earlier cited. Especially, I have an issue with the fact that the character of the neighborhood is not such, though it's industrially zoned. And correct me if I'm wrong, and I'll ask the county councilor, prior to zoning laws being enacted, zoning would often take place according to the character of how development occurred, correct?
Well, prior to zoning, there wouldn't be any zoning.
Right, but I'm saying sometimes they would restrict land use based on how things had developed. But anyway,
it could be possible.
Yeah, so the character of this area, and we have so many folks that have moved into the area with expectations of what type of an area would be, and for the last 30 plus years it has been agricultural and residential. We've built the residential states. We're building households, and they're paying property taxes, and they're paying a lot of property taxes, and they are the engine for Leavenworth County. And in fact, we've even put foster care homes in this area. Putting a sand mine near where foster care homes, it just doesn't fit, folks. It just doesn't make sense. And based on that and all of the others, golden factors that I cited before, and maybe if this is for the record, maybe I should go back through it.
I think we can take your previous reading.
It is recorded. Your previous is recorded.
Okay.
So it is in
well,
the record.
I just don't think it conforms to that area. I think it's an insult to our area. And I think the benefit to this county, we've already seen, there's very, very few jobs created. Most of those jobs are going to be transfer jobs that already exist. There's other locations this type of development could take place. This is not the only place where you could put a sand mine, and it does not fit with this area. And that certainly would be my concurrence. And to just think, this board approved a wonderful foster care facility, but now it's within 1,000 feet of this. It doesn't make sense, and that's why I will be voting no.
Mr. Shimke?
Some of this I already covered. I mean, I think ultimately there's been a lot of discussion around the financials, and the reality is while there's been a lot of interest and there's even been more recent testimony as to some of the challenges either with adjacent counties or businesses or regulatory authorities, that's outside of our purview and control. Those are things, that's why those entities exist. So if I'm sitting here with, while there's been many concerns over time, and I'm not saying any of them haven't been substantiated, a lot of them do fall to outside agencies. They fall outside of what we're tasked to do. What we're tasked to do is, one, understand the use. You currently have a use that is approved within the zoning, and all of those things do fall into alignment. The SUP process wasn't to change zoning or change use. It was to make sure that if there was any detrimental impact to the county, that we did our due diligence and figured out what that would be. And that's what these road conditions are all about, and trying to address all of the comments and concerns we've had from all of the residents, including law enforcement. And so, again, it's not the only thing that we do. Clearly, we're here for the public and public safety, but a large part of what we do at the county is making sure that we have improved roadways, and a lot of times that's very difficult to complete. We're a very under-taxed-based county in general. And if we can find ways to improve infrastructure and do so with the help of industry, I think it's in our best interest to do so, because our taxes, most would agree, are already through the roof, and that's because we're the 6th ranked in population, but 11th or 12th in taxes collected. It's a very unfair position to be in. So because of the use and because of the improvements we're requiring, I'm going to vote yay.
All right. Well, like I said, I've been dealing with this since October of 2018. I've met with a lot of people. I've met with Kaw Valley. I've visited their sites. I had a lot of years of experience with the roads down there. I agree with Commissioner Shipke that our roads are very expensive. We spent over $20 million in the Tonganoxie area to help develop an industrial park and a super 2-lane highway to go to industrial park that has one business in it that probably has, 3 or 4 employees. And it doesn't look like we're going to get any more anytime soon. For the applicant to come forward and offer to pay toward improving the road and to operate a business down there, and we're talking 3 or 4 miles in Leavenworth County. We're not talking about driving through the county with these trucks. These trucks they're registered, they're legal weights. There's trucks on all of our roads. I have probably more truck traffic goes by my house than what the applicant is asking for on a daily basis. And I will be voting yes. Commissioner Culberson.
Although, I don't think anything I say is going to make a difference. People are going to, have already decided the way what side they are on this issue. But I would like some people to appreciate how much time and effort I think every county commissioner on this board has put into this. I've talked to all the different departments at the state level, everybody involved, adjacent counties. I think the biggest driver for what my vote consists of is courts have insisted that zoning decisions should not be based on the whims and articulate vocal minority group or even the majority of the community. They're not meant to be a popularity contest. Instead, zoning decisions should be consistent with the comprehensive plan. I don't think that people understand the weight of the comprehensive plan in the zoning map. This has been zoned industrial since 1962. If you bought or built your house next to an industrial zone and then you try to change what that person wants to do with their land in the industrial zone is what doesn't make sense. It keeps getting brought up this is not an industrial neighborhood. It's zoned industrial. So you can't convince me. The railroad is an industrial use. How long has the railroad been there? So I think I agree with the biggest problem with this county is we're 65% tax, but 35% tax exempt. We have got to find ways to lower people's ad valorem property taxes in ways we haven't done before. I talked to a business owner in Wyandotte County while this was going on, put up a new business just across the county line in Wyandotte County. I said, hey, why didn't you build across the line in Leavenworth County? And he said, try to start a business in Leavenworth County. Are you crazy? So hopefully this is to send a message that Leavenworth County is open for business. So my vote is yes.
Commissioner Cause?
Yes, this is Commissioner Cause. I believe that my motion laid out all of my reasons for making the motion. I would like to express my thanks to all of the individuals who provided input and information throughout this process of the last year and a half. And I did not arrive at my decision. I took everything serious consideration for all of the factors. And having weighed out all of the factors, I made a determination to provide the motion. And In doing so, I vote yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. And like I said, I might add that Commissioner Culbertson said about the zoning. It's been that way since 1962. I don't believe he was alive yet.
Not quite.
Was. So
Close.
Zoning. So with that, the motion carried 4-1. We have any other business for the board?
Mr. Chairman, just as a matter, staff will prepare a final signature version of the resolution and get it to the board as soon as possible.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's nice to know that our own,
Thank you. She needs to be
people
removed.
do not matter to this council.
Do the fire district meeting? Who will be attending the fire district meeting?
I understand here.
Thursday.
Fire district meeting.
You need to leave.
Okay. Yes, sir. Thank you. Who will be attending the fire district meeting? Commissioner Cos, will you be able to make the fire district meeting tomorrow?
If Commissioner Sheffield cannot make it, I will make it.
Vicky,
Oh, wait, no, I can't. I do have a conflict.
Vicky, I think I'm good. 7 o'clock
Okay, good.
tomorrow.
Thanks, Pat.
Yep.
Either way you can't make it, you can give me a call.
For me.
Too far. So, and then, does anybody else got any meetings they've attended?
I've lost track of what I've done
This
last
is
week.
Commissioner Cox.
Stuff.
Go ahead.
For the agenda next week, I would like to add a discussion item regarding the vote that we took on the mask requirements, and I'd like to get kind of an update of where we are and if that still appears to be appropriate.
Okay, we can add that to the agenda.
And that would be pretty much.
Put it on for next week.
I don't
Is that what
think
you
I
said?
attended anything else.
Okay. I really didn't have any other meetings. I did attend the Kane Family Farms at the one we approved. I talked to you about that earlier, but I think everybody should visit that. That is a really a good addition to the Tonganoxie area for business. So that's what we're about. And what was our number of tax exempt?
35. What's that?
How much? No, I'm talking about the dollar manual. It's like
2.8 billion.
2.8 billion of tax exempt property in Leavenworth County. So
That would be 35 mils.
Yeah.
If we were to collect taxes on that, we could lower our
35
millage by
mils.
35
They'd be
mils.
paying us to live here about like Alaska would. So, anyways, all right, we're ready for our. If we don't have anything else before the board, I have a public comment, and I don't believe I have that gentleman's name.
Richard Faraday.
Richard Faraday. Okay.
That's
Did we lose?
Richard?
Did we lose Mike?
Yeah, he left us.
Okay.
Mr. Faraday, could you come forward to the microphone?
Supposed to go here?
Yes,
Right
sir.
there, sir. You can take your mask off too if you want.
Do it. My name's Rich. How are you gentlemen today?
I'm fine.
Good morning.
I have just something very short because I want you to get to lunch before you get skinny. So here's the deal.
That ship done sailed.
After the governor put forth her request for being a little more careful considering the COVID virus, a little more care, then I went to the grocery store a few days after that, and I saw fewer masks than I saw before the request for caution by the state of Kansas. I was rather impressed by that, so I went to the management and I asked why, and the management said, well, because my management told me to. I'm not complaining about my grocery store, I love it, but I saw people serving food, open container food, no mask. And I thought to myself, well, okay, this doesn't seem right to me that you would at least not try to protect somebody else. Now, I want to go a little farther. Wisdom is displayed in a leader and in an individual like myself when I know my limits and when I'm wise enough to operate within my limits. My daughter got up one morning with COVID, I believe, in January. I say I believe because they can't prove it even today. They don't have an accurate test, not even today, for a previous, okay? Antibody test, no good. Anyway, she got up, she couldn't breathe. Do you think she should call a contractor? I don't think so. She needs to talk to a medic. So what I'm saying to you in shortened down, boiled down, is I beg of you to let the medical community direct entirely the reaction in our public. If you err in judgment and err on the safe side, what's going to happen? If you err on the non-cautious side, what's going to happen? And I'm going to go a little farther. What's a leader? You put yourself forth, right? You say, okay, I want to lead. That's great. I'm glad for you. I think it's kind of gutsy on your part because I have trouble running my own house. I'm 77. I haven't figured out how to raise kids. I got 3 of them. Okay? I knew before I had any. Anyway, what I'm saying by that is this. What you do shouts. What you say whispers. I just urge you guys to err on the cautious side and let the people who really, really, really understand this thing get in there. And then when you're out there as Joe Public, please be that example. You're living in a rebellious society. Do you see what it's accomplishing? I think I see it. Anyway, another thing. It's off the record. Give me a couple of minutes. I'm 77. Not particularly bright. I just get along. I had the blessing of not coming from a Christian family, but being sent to a little church. They taught me these stories in here, in the Word of God. They were written 2,000 to 3,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago. 4,500 anyway. The prophecies of what would come in this day of 2,000 to 3,000 years ago, my friends, I'm seeing it out the front door.
Read the book of Revelations there, it'll explain it.
You're seeing it out the front door. If you don't have Jesus in your heart, my friend, it's terrible. I just beg of you, read it, believe it, heed it, and I'll go a little farther. If you know anything about what it says is coming in here, it's lining up. I don't want to take your day to explain it because you probably get bored. But boy, do I see it. God bless you. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful day.
And thank you for coming here. Be safe and wear your mask. Do we have any other public comment that's signed up?
That's the only one.
Okay. Do we have anything else before this board? And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Just a reminder that we do have budget hearings this afternoon.
Thank you.
Not directed at anyone.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
I appreciate that.
I wish to inform the board, as part of the litigation that the county has initiated regarding the Fire District Number 1, counsel for the members of the Fire District has filed for a request to extend the time for them to file their answer. Inasmuch as I believe the court is more than likely to grant that motion in order to expedite this moving down the road, I intend to, unless you direct me otherwise, to indicate that we do not have any objection. It may, I'm not certain if it will delay the scheduling conference set for next Wednesday, but at the most it would entail approximately a 2-week delay. But I wish to tell you that in my judgment, I think it's in the long-term interest of the county not to object to that request.
I agree.
This is Commissioner Cox. I have no problem with that.
Well, as I said, unless you tell me otherwise, I'm going to do it.
What are your concerns, Commissioner Cause?
She said she had no problem.
Oh, I thought you said she had concerns. Oh, I'm sorry. I agree.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Stevens, bring you up to speed. Senior County Counselor said there was asked for an extension on the fire district. deal, and it's not a big deal.
I think it's appropriate not to object to it, Commissioner.
Okay.
You're the legal beagle.
I've once owned a beagle, and I have a great deal of respect for beagles. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. All right, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Voting.
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Commissioner Bowles votes aye.